This week on Connecticut, power and politics. Donald Trump officially gets the Republican Party nomination just days after an assassination attempt. We'll talk to the Connecticut GOP chair from Milwaukee. In Bridgeport, a second city council member could face criminal charges in the ballot stuffing scandal. Could more people be next? And Guten Tag. We'll tell you why Governor Lamont is in Germany this week. This is Connecticut, Power and Politics. Hello and welcome to Connecticut Power and Politics. I'm John Craven in for Mark Sudol this week. And what a week it has been.
Take a look at what happened.
It started off with a hail of bullets at a Donald Trump rally in Pennsylvania last weekend. The former president survived an assassination attempt, getting grazed in the ear. The shooting came just 2 days before the start of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. On opening day, Trump announced his vice presidential pick, Senator J.D. Vance, a firebrand conservative from Ohio. Vance told a primetime television audience that he's never forgotten his working class roots, even after attending Yale Law School, and that he will always fight for the forgotten working man. But Democrats already pouncing on Vance's past comments on abortion, including supporting a ban even in cases of rape or incest. And on the final night, Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination in a 90-minute speech that was both a call for unity, but also included plenty of fiery jabs at Democrats and prosecutors. Trump recounted the shooting, kissed the helmet of the firefighter killed by the gunman, and did something rare in a Trump speech. He asked to tone down the rhetoric.
And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as an enemy of democracy.
Well, like you just heard there, as Trump's acceptance speech went on, it became more partisan. He also repeated numerous false or misleading statements about taxes, immigration, and the 2020 election, which the former president still claims was rigged. Well, Connecticut sent 28 delegates to the RNC, and leading them was this man, State Party Chairman Ben Proto, who joins us from Milwaukee. So, Ben, Donald Trump called for unity in his acceptance speech, but his MO, really for decades, has been aggressively going after his opponents. It's why so many people love Donald Trump. After the shooting, is this a new Trump?
Look, I think, I think any of us, John, would be changed after someone shot us. Thankfully, President Trump survived. Unfortunately, a husband and father, a leader in his community, Corey Corpentori, lost his life in that shooting. 2 others were badly wounded. We understand that they are going to survive, thankfully. And so first and foremost, I always tell people when we talk about this, don't forget them. We always talk about Donald Trump getting shot, but there were other lives that were devastated by this. And so we shouldn't forget those people, and we should always remember them. I think Donald Trump had a strong message last night, a unifying message for the Republican Party. I think his statements that, we need to tone down some of the vitriolic rhetoric. Look, politics is, it is a game of sharp elbows, and attacking your opponent's positions, attacking your opponent's record, attacking your opponent's vision and agenda for what's going to, what they want to do going forward is part of what politics is about. And that's acceptable. It should be done. You have to create the contrast with your opponent. But I think he also talked about, coming together, being united, particularly within our party, within the Republican Party. We have far too many people within our own party who think it's appropriate, and the way to go about winning is to attack within our own party. And he made a comment, it was a kind of I don't know if it was a throwaway line or, in 90 minutes, finding a line here or there is not always the easiest thing to do. But he said, if we use our energies to fight each other, we can't succeed. And I took that twofold. One, within our party, that if we continue to fight with ourselves, we're never going to be able to win. But more importantly, if we continue to use our energies to really fight within ourselves, within America, in a way that has happened over the last many years, it becomes more difficult for America to find those unifying issues and find the unity that we had. It was interesting. Someone made a comment to me this week. He said, as I look back on September 11, 2001, when members of Congress stood together and held hands and sang, "God bless America," when Americans came together, and it was unfortunate that it took this unbelievable, unimaginable tragedy to bring us together. So do we only come together when there's tragedies, or can we come together for the betterment of America? And I think that was part of what the message was about last night.
And Ben, I've only got about a minute left, but I have to ask you about the abortion issue too, because you're getting heat really from both sides on this. I mean, Democrats say that the Trump administration will strip away reproductive rights, but on the other hand, you've taken some heat from abortion opponents because for the first time in 40 years, the Republican platform does not include an abortion ban. How do Republicans navigate that issue?
Look, I think that I was on the platform committee. I was proud to serve as the Trump point person on the floor during the platform debate. And the position within our platform this year really reflects where the Republican Party has been for the last 50 years. And the Republican Party's position has been that Roe was wrongly decided, that the decision and the issue rightly belongs with the states. That's what Dobbs does. It doesn't do anything that the Democrats are saying it does. It doesn't, ban abortion across the country. It says you in the states decide. And state legislators, John, as you know, are much closer to the people than members of Congress or the United States Senate or even the president. They have their pulse more firmly on what people in their state are thinking. So in Connecticut, we embodied Roe in the statutes in 1992. That's not going to change in the state of Connecticut. But in our platform, we say it's a decision for the states. We don't support late-term abortions. We do support access to prenatal care. We do support access to birth control, and we do support the use of in vitro fertilization for those couples who can't conceive naturally, and utilizing science to do that so they can create their own families. So the Democrats, for all intent and purposes, are full of you-know-what, but then again, they're usually full of you-know-what because they really have nothing to run on and nothing to talk about, so they have to demonize, and they talk about us demonizing. Think about this for a minute, John. This is a unique moment in history. For the first time in our history, a political party is seeking to depose a sitting United States president of their own party because they're afraid they're going to lose an election and lose power. That's amazing to me that that's where we are right now, that we are seeking to depose a sitting United States president and can't decide who we should put in their place. Because we're afraid we might lose.
And more on that in a few minutes. All right, we'll have to leave it there. Ben Proto, chairman of the Connecticut Republican Party. Always good to have you on. Safe travels back to Connecticut, sir. All right, let's bring in Jonathan Wharton now. Jonathan is a political scientist from Southern Connecticut State and has also been involved in Republican politics for many years. So, Jonathan, the GOP is very confident, but should they be?
Well, it's a given after a convention that you have at least a bump-up effect, an interest in a candidate that's been officialized or coordinated, if you will, at a national convention. So we're going to see that effect take place immediately following the convention, similarly to what could happen even in Chicago for the Democratic Party, for that matter. So this is typical for presidential conventions where we see that bump-up effect.
All right, well, let's talk about the Democrats. We tape this program on Friday, and as of right now, President Biden is still in the race. If he stays in, what do you think the impact is here in Connecticut, especially in the down ballot races?
Well, this is exactly why states like Connecticut, that may not be in play, at least, are a lot of the candidates and certainly the congressional delegations concerned, because it is a more or less, when it comes to a president and even when it comes to a governor at the top of the ticket, it does matter because they're the ones who are setting the tone, and any concerns that linger about their electability could have a stinging effect for down ballot candidates. So this is one of the reasons why you're hearing some people in the delegation, but really specifically some of the Congressman Himes being outspoken about it publicly.
All right, buckle up. The next few months are going to be a wild ride. Jonathan Wharton, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me on, John.
All right, well, speaking of wild rides, the ballot stuffing scandal in Bridgeport keeps growing. The latest politician who could face charges coming up. I'm John Craven. Welcome back to Connecticut, Power and Politics. More fallout from the Bridgeport ballot scandal. Now a second city council member could face criminal charges. This footage showing Martinez and others stuffing ballot boxes led a judge to toss out last year's Democratic primary for mayor.
We're looking for transparency. We've been looking for accountability.
John Gomes filed that lawsuit. On the witness stand, Martinez pleaded the fifth, but soon she may face criminal charges.
Those in favor of the motion will raise their hands and/or say aye.
Wednesday, the State Elections Enforcement Commission referred Martinez to the chief state's attorney.
Based on what I saw and based on what our evidence shows, she was a culprit.
Martinez declined to comment. She already faces charges related to a social club where a shooting took place. But despite all her legal troubles, Bridgeport Democrats just endorsed Martinez for a General Assembly seat.
It's emotional, very emotional for me.
Martinez is the second Bridgeport politician referred to prosecutors. Another complaint claims Councilwoman Maria Pereira bribed and even threatened voters. And 4 other campaign workers face fraud charges for the 2019 election. For Bridgeport voters, it's just more discouraging news.
It is a little surprising, but it's not necessarily something that wouldn't happen.
Also, state regulators dismissed a complaint against Mayor Joe Ganim, claiming that he actually lives in Easton. Ganim thanked them for dismissing, quote, this frivolous complaint. Well, Jameen Davis is here with us. She is with the election reform group Bridgeport Generation Now. Okay, Jameen, we have now 2 city council members, Anita Martinez and Maria Pereira, both referred for criminal prosecution, possible criminal prosecution. How significant is that?
I think it's very significant, and I think that it is a good day for Bridgeport when the state is taking seriously the complaints against city council members and anyone who is mishandling elections.
State regulators seem to be moving faster than they have in the past.
Yes, they're certainly moving faster, and we're grateful for that.
Now, in that piece, John Gomes, who ran against Mayor Ganim, said this news is vindication for him. But we should point out, Maria Pereira was campaigning for Gomes. And one of the 2019 defendants was working for Ganim's then opponent, Marilyn Moore. So this doesn't just involve Joe Ganim's people.
It doesn't involve just Joe Ganim's people. What is going on in Bridgeport is an expose or an exposing of a system of election interference that Bridgeport has been suffering under for the last 30, 40 years. So let's be very clear that there is a systems problem. Our democracy has been suffering under it for many years. Joe Ganim's campaign just happens to be the worst at doing it and the most egregious in their behavior. But certainly Maria Pereira's name has been floating around on the streets for a very long time about the tactics that she uses during election season.
Should Joe Ganim be criminally charged?
I don't know if Joe Ganim should be criminally charged. I know he should be held responsible in some way, shape, or form. There is a reason why these people are doing what they're doing, and they have been told to do what they do. So whoever is benefiting from those, from that behavior needs to be held accountable. So
before we go, I also want to ask you about the presidential race, because you are one of the Connecticut delegates to the Democratic National Convention. So we're taping this on Friday. We don't know what Joe Biden is going to decide yet, but as a delegate, do you want him to stay in the race? And do you think the other delegates want him to stay in the race?
I most certainly want Joe Biden to stay in the race. I think the constituents in Bridgeport want Joe Biden to stay in the race. And in fact, 55,500 some odd people came out during the primary and voted for Joe Biden to be our nominee.
You know, some of his strongest supporters have been the Congressional Black Caucus. Why do you think it is that black voters in particular have really been, I think, the most supportive of him?
Well, we know how to fight, and we also know what's at stake. I think what has happened on the national level is that we have some congressional leaders who have been pressured, I believe, by big donors to do something about the race. So there's a lot of fear out there, and certainly everybody knows what is at stake and knows that we have to win. So I just think that we all need to stiffen up our backs and get to work and do what we need to do.
All right. If Joe Biden steps aside, though, would you support Kamala Harris on the floor, or would you like to also hear from other candidates?
The only other candidate that has a viable shot would be Kamala Harris. I think it would be egregious for the party to try and put someone else up. Kamala Harris is on the ticket now. She is our vice president. She has spent the last 4 years working on behalf of the American people as our vice president, and so she certainly must be the candidate that's put up.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Jamim Davis from Bridgeport Generation Now. Thanks as always for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Jamim. All right, coming up next, Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Governor Lamont is brushing up on his German after the break. Why the governor spent this week in Germany. Welcome back to Power and Politics. Governor Lamont spent this week in Germany on a trade mission. He's hoping to attract more companies and jobs. At Sikorsky in Stratford, thousands of workers are building the massive King Stallion chopper. The company hopes to sell them to Germany. They could get a boost from Governor Lamont, who's in Germany this week on a trade mission.
Germany, like Connecticut, has a major aerospace industry, and we do a lot together right now.
Germany is actually Connecticut's biggest trading partner, buying $2 billion in exports last year.
21st century technology and processes.
Pratt & Whitney sells them airplane parts. And in Wilton, semiconductor manufacturer ASML sources many of its materials from Germany.
The visit to Germany is a real opportunity to not only continue to increase the amount of business going to Germany from our companies here in Connecticut, but also see if any of those German companies are interested in expanding to Connecticut.
Connecticut is already home to more than 100 German companies, including pharmaceutical giant Boehringer Ingelheim in Ridgefield, welding company Trumpf in Farmington, and Roto Frank in Chester, a major window and door manufacturer. The Connecticut Business and Industry Association says Lamont's trip could mean new, high-paying jobs.
In the manufacturing sector, you're talking about highly engineered jobs, so a lot of advanced technologies, folks who are working with automation.
Connecticut has a highly skilled engineering workforce, but it's also more expensive than southern states. Lamont has 1 week to make the case in person. Well, this isn't Lamont's first international trade mission. 2 years ago, he led a trip to Israel where he met with 20 tech startups. That's all of our time for this week. I'm John Craven. Thank you for watching Power and Politics. We'll see you next week.